Magandang gabi. Welcome to the President's Toast and CIFALPH Philippines Grand Launch, brought to you by the Office of the University President of the University of the Philippines, the Center for Integrative and Development Studies of the Office of the Vice President for Academic Affairs of the University of the Philippines, the local government of Quezon City. For our opening remarks, I'd like to call on Honorable Imelda M. Nicolas, former chairperson of the Commission on Filipinos Overseas. Let's give her a very warm round of applause.
Although I am the former chair of the Commission on Philippines Overseas, I would like to speak on behalf of the CFO, since it served as the catalyst for bringing together two great institutions. One is national and nationwide, the University of the Philippines System, and the other is international and worldwide, the CIFAL Global Network of Training Centers of the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, or UNITAR. In other words, the training arm of the UN system. Thus, this grand launch of CIFAL Philippines means that tonight it has joined 16, as of to date, but still increasing in numbers, international training centers for authorities and leaders located across Asia, Africa, Australia, Europe, the Americas, and the Caribbean, ranging from Argentina to Atlanta, from Bangalore to Durban, from Jeju to Maghreb, from Newcastle to Quito, from Shanghai to Zurich. This CIFAL Philippines launch is groundbreaking in many ways. There is the fact that its various training, capacity development, and research activities is specialized on the thematic area of international migration and development. Not one of the 16 UNITAR training centers has this for its focus. To stress its important significance, I'd like to quote from IOM Director General William Lacy Swing when he declared that, and I quote, "Migration remains a defining feature of the 21st century, and the way in which we approach it will have powerful implications for societies around the globe and for generations to come." End of quote. It is likewise important to note that the new Global Agenda for Development, more popularly known as the SDGs for 2030, now include migration among its goals and targets, with a more comprehensive provision featured in Goal 10.7, and I quote, "to facilitate orderly, safe, regular, and responsible migration and mobility of people, including through implementation of planned and well-managed migration policies," end of quote. In view of this, CIFAL Philippines will rely very heavily on the experience of the Philippines in migration governance. According to the IOM's 2013 migration report on the country, the governance of migration the Philippines has set up is a model of interest to others, especially for the following reasons. One, it is comprehensive. It covers all the different types of migrants, all the phases of migration from pre-departure to arrival, from stay and return. Number two, it has solid protection components in its laws and regulations for overseas Filipinos in general and overseas Filipino workers in particular. Number three, it is effective in facilitating overseas employment. Another innovative approach of CIFAL Philippines is its commitment to provide the gender perspective across all its courses, curriculum, and programs. The other major decision of CIFAL Philippines is to cover the Asia-Pacific region for its audience, participants, beneficiaries, and area of study. Again, this is very significant because based on ESCAP's Asia-Pacific Migration Report of 2015, and I quote, "International migration is a major driver of social and economic change in the region. In 2013, of the estimated 235.5 million migrants in the world, over 59 million, or 25%, were found in countries of this region. Furthermore, over 95 million, or 41% of the world's total migrants, came from countries in Asia or the Pacific. End of quote. For all these reasons and many more, we are proud and privileged to be an integral and active part of CIFAL Philippines, and we salute all its institutional partners. Our highest accolade, however, goes to the University of the Philippines system in general and to the UP Center for Integrative and Development Studies in particular, headed by Dr. Edna Co. Let's give them a warm round of applause. UP had the courage, the vision, and the will to host CIFAL Philippines, to take on this brave new world we call international migration, with all its complexities and complications, its gains and its pains, crisscrossing borders and continuously moving from local to national, from regional to international levels. So hail to the University of the Philippines. Cheers to UNITAR. Welcome to CIFAL Philippines. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Honorable Imelda Nicolas. And for the introduction of CIFAL Philippines, I'd like to call on Dr. Edna Ieko. She is the Executive Director of the UP Center for Integrative and Development Studies, and in her first international public appearance as the new Vice President for Public Affairs of the University of the Philippines. Let's give her a very warm round of applause.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. CIFAL Philippines was born from the bosom of the University of the Philippines, the premier national university. We at the Center for Integrative and Development Studies of the university cast no inch of hesitation when Secretary Nicolas challenged us to serve as the hub of migration research and training. The Philippines is a big sending country of human talent and skills everywhere across the globe. Many of them have become permanent residents overseas. We benefit from our migrant population, but we also continue to be baffled by migration issues and challenges. Migration is a phenomenon shared by the Philippines with other countries in the Asia Pacific and, of course, in other parts of the world. Indeed, migration is an important development issue, which is why in 2014, when the Commission on Filipinos Overseas met with us, we rose up to the challenge to adopt and embrace migration and migration studies. Thanks to the leadership of the University of the Philippines, we now join not only the academics committed to migration analytics, but also the global CIFAL network of the United Nations. UP is now UN. Shall we clap to that? I thank the UP President Alfredo Pascual, and the Board of Regents for supporting this initiative of this center. This will surely go down as a legacy of the Pascual administration, not only to research and analytics of supreme impact, but also to sustainable human development to the Filipino nation, to the region, and to the world. We will perform the CIFAL functions of training and research on three thematic areas, namely migration, gender equality, and sustainable development. And we will hold hands with local authorities and leaders in the Asia-Pacific region, with the full support, of course, and in collaboration with the CIFAL family, namely the UNDP, the International Labour Organization, the International Organization for Migration, the Commission on Filipinos Overseas, and the local partners and the civil society groups. We have drafted some 6 or 7 modules on migration, sustainable development, and gender equality. A copy of this, I'm sure, has been given out to you, and at the beginning of the day, this was included as a packet in our conference bag. We are ready to roll out as we continue to advance our other modules, and which we will be conducting through a blended learning approach and in a very practical, professional way. We will have experienced professionals and experts, as well as academics, as resource persons in this life learning for development mission of the CIFAL. We will do so with excellence, because excellence is the other name of the University of the Philippines. Mabuhay ang CIFAL Philippines, mabuhay tayong lahat.
Thanks very much, Dr. Ed Naco. We will now have a video message from the UNITAR Executive Director, Mr. Nick Hale Seth. Again, the video message from UNITAR Executive Director, Mr. Nick Hale Seth.
Becoming 16th member a family that trains over 20,000 beneficiaries every year. Congratulations, CIFAL Manila, at becoming the 16th member of the CIFAL family, a family that trains over 20,000 beneficiaries every 2 years. It's a very significant achievement that we get through this network of related organizations with UNITAR. I especially want to thank the Government of Philippines and the Commission for Filipinos Overseas and the University of the Philippines, who played a seminal role in making this CIFAL in Manila possible. I look forward to the work of CIFAL Manila in furthering, in particular, the agendas that we have established in 2015 and what we are going to do in Quito this year relating to Habitat 3. 70% of our world lives in cities, and all the world's problems and all the world's solutions and all the world's opportunities will be in cities. Our ability to reach people through the CIFALs, to train them for realizing the ambitions of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is one of the major reasons why these CIFALs have been set up. I look forward to hearing all the news from CIFAL Manila as the years go by and we hear success stories on the achievements, the training and the capacity building that has been done by this wonderful new CIFAL. So all the best, and I hope you have a great opening ceremony.
Thanks very much. Again, that was the video message from UNITAR Executive Director, Mr. Nick Hale Seth. Before we continue to the next part of the program, I would like to acknowledge the presence of the following, or the representatives of the following Board of Representatives of CIFAL Philippines. First, representatives of the Mayor, Quezon City Mayor, Honorable Herbert Bautista. And Mr. Renato Graziano Battistella, Director of Scalabrini Migration Center. Cecile Relayang, Head of the Joint Migration and Development Initiative, JMDI. Yasser Saad, Deputy Representative of the UN High Commission for Refugees. And Bernardia Chandra Devi, Secretary General of the United Cities and Local Governments, Asia Pacific. We will now move on to the UP President's Toast. And please give a very warm round of applause to Dr. Alfredo E. Pascual, President of the University of the Philippines.
Distinguished guests, my colleagues from the university and other academic institutions, city leaders from around the world participating in the third Global Mayoral Forum, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm honored and privileged to be in your midst tonight as we celebrate UP's landmark partnership with UNITAR and witness the launching of CIFAL Philippines, the Asia-Pacific hub of the CIFAL Global Network. I wholeheartedly thank the United Nations and UNITAR for choosing us to be the partner in the establishment of a training center that will enhance and strengthen the capacities of local and regional leaders in policy and decision-making. As the Philippines' lone national university, the University of the Philippines is proud to join you and be at the forefront of such a high-impact global initiative. CIFAL Philippines will not only boost UP's reputation as a regional and global university, but will also serve as a fitting venue for the university to carry out its commitment to serve the Filipino nation and the rest of humanity. UP is mandated to serve and lead as a public service university that provides assistance to government, civil society, and private sector through research, training, education, and expert consultancy. I am glad that this mandate is shared by the CIFAL Global Network. I am pleased that we have a common ground with our goals to enrich the capacities of government and civil society leaders to enable them to undertake programs and projects leading to sustainable development and to facilitate their empowerment in the pursuit of a just, equitable, and viable society. UP's public service mission is invariably compatible with UNITAR's objective to develop capacities of individuals, organizations, and institutions to enhance global decision-making and to support country-level action for shaping a better future. Our lead agency in this initiative is the UP Center for Integrative and Development Studies, or UPCIDS, whose role is to harness UP's multidisciplinary expertise in the critical and meaningful analysis of local, national, regional, and international issues and policies. Through the UPCIDS, CIFAL Philippines will be able to maximize UP's multidisciplinary strengths and expertise in the areas of public policy, migration and development, and gender equality to significantly contribute to the achievement of social inclusion and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. With CIFAL Philippines' mission of a better future, its launch is appropriately placed within the third Global Mayoral Forum on Human Mobility, Migration, and Development. Our heartfelt gratitude goes to the Quezon City government, led by Mayor Herbert Bautista, for making this launch part of this event. Participants in this global gathering consist of government and civil society leaders who are here to tackle the implementation of migration policies in their respective cities. Your presence indicates your recognition of these critical issues. It also manifests your desire to address these issues by actively engaging the international community in open discussion and knowledge sharing. As CIFAL Philippines gets going, we hope that you will also grow with us and become active participants and partners in the Center's activities. Before I end, let me reiterate this. UP stands united with UNITAR and the CIFAL Global Network in recognizing the urgent need to effectively address the challenges and issues that hinder governments and societies from achieving inclusive growth and sustainable development. I say, padayon, onward we go. Let us join hands and make CIFAL Philippines an effective agent of social transformation through the empowerment of leaders in the pursuit of social justice and development. Thank you and good evening.
We'll be acknowledging some other distinguished guests later on, but for the time being, we'll be moving on to the formal ceremonial signing of the cooperation agreement between the University of the Philippines and UNITAR. We would like to call on first, again, to kindly join us on stage again, UP President Dr. Alfredo E. Pascual, from the University of the Philippines side, Dr. Colleen Tue, Senior Training and Research Advisor of UNITAR, and then we would also like to ask the following to join us on stage. Mr. Ola Amgren, Resident Commissioner of United Nations Development Program. Mr. Khalid Hassan, ILO Country Office Representative in the Philippines. Mr. Marco Boasso, Chief of Mission of the International Organization for Migration. Dr. Edna Ko, CIFAL Philippines Director, Vice President of Public Affairs, and CIDS Director of the University of the Philippines. And Honorable Imelda Nicolas, former Secretary and Chairperson of the Commission on Filipinos Overseas. We'd also like to request Mayor Herbert Bautista, Quezon City Mayor, Senator Risa Ontiveros, and Cecile Reliant to please join us on stage. Thank you very much. Let's give them a very warm round of applause. We'd like to request Dr. Colleen Tue to remain on stage. She's the Senior Training and Research Advisor of UNITAR to deliver her response. Let's give her a very warm round of applause, Dr. Colleen Tue.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Assistant Secretary General Nikhil Seth, who we heard speak, and you heard from his voice and intonation how excited he is with the joining of CIFAL Philippines to the global network of CIFAL centers. I'm also here representing the director of the global network, Mr. Alex Mejia, who sends his best wishes to Quezon City, the president of the University of Philippines, and those gathered for the mayoral forum. When Nikhil said welcome to the UN family, in fact, it's also a welcome to the UN family of Training and Research Institute, which is a very special family within the UN system. And in fact, what drives the work of the training and research entities within the UN system are the principles very much espoused and described by Dr. Ko, the new director of the CIFAL Philippines, earlier today. Public service to the field of learning, a continued commitment to education and to learning. The idea that that opportunities to learn have, and the impact of learning have a relationship on opportunities of employment, a dedication to open access when it comes to education. These are very much behind the spirit also of UNITAR, an institute which was founded, in fact, in the early 1960s, in 1963, with at the time a very specific purpose, and that purpose was to help countries coming out of decolonization, recently free countries, have trained their staff, and in particular their diplomatic staff, so that they could negotiate and operate in the multilateral settings that are the United Nations settings of negotiating and deliberating and drafting of resolutions before the various diplomatic bodies that you find in New York and elsewhere, and to make sure that new countries with new diplomatic corps would have those same abilities as others. And that tradition of giving a leg up, of assisting different segments of society, be it the public sector or the non-governmental sector as well, progressively, UNITAR continues to have a dedication to training and, to the extent possible, offering opportunities of learning to those who have less resources, perhaps, than others. I remember in 2004 when I first came to UNITAR in New York, to the headquarters of the United Nations, and represented UNITAR there, that there was a kerfuffle within the General Assembly. There was a disagreement within the General Assembly on a particular resolution relating to sustainable development. So this was back in 2004. And the discussion or the tensions between a number of governments with respect to this resolution was specific reference to local government, to local authorities in this resolution on sustainable development. Back then, 12 years ago, the idea of within an intergovernmental body speaking about the authorities and the responsibilities of local government was unthinkable and indeed resisted by national governments. At the time, UNITAR and also UN Habitat were two of the UN entities that were very much already committed to working with local government on areas of sustainable development. As Secretary Nicolas rightly points out, UNITAR CIFAL network has focused on what we were discussing earlier in the context of the forum, has focused on issues of sustainable development, social equality, economic growth, and urban governance. It is only more recently, in the last few years, that a number of the CIFAL directors, and Dr. Ko, you'll hear more about this, I'm sure, now that you're part of the family, have gotten involved and very interested in migration work and wanting to know more and to learn more. And so it's really wonderful to know that the first area of work for the CIFAL Philippines will be around the area of migration, but also gender and the sustainable development goals. So with this, let me renew our appreciation and our excitement to work with the new member of the CIFAL network. Thank you very much.
Before we move on, I'd like to acknowledge the organizers who wish to express their deep gratitude to the following individuals for their unwavering support and presence towards success of activities tonight and for the next few days for the third Global Mayoral Forum. Again, we'd like to acknowledge Quezon City Mayor Herbert Bautista for his unwavering support for the success of tonight's event and for the next 2 days. Dr. Howard Duncan from Metropolis International. Dr. Manolo Abella. Again, Dr. Colleen West. Jill Hilke and Ove Samad and Marco Boasa from IOM. Cecile Relon. Again, let's give these people a very warm round of applause for their support. For our keynote address, we'd like to call on a very well-loved senator and political and so public figure in the Philippines, Honorable Senator of the Republic of the Philippines. Let's give a very warm round of applause, Honorable Riza Ontiveros.
Salamat, Sir Wendell. Thank you. Secretary Melly, Dr. Edna, President Pascual, Dr. Colleen Thuy, of course, Mayor Herbert, dear and distinguished friends, magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Good evening. I would like to thank the CIFAL Philippines for inviting me to this important gathering of diplomats, mayors, and other city leaders from all around the globe. It's an honor to speak before all of you tonight as we exchange perspectives on the issues of migrant workers, rights, and gender equality. As a senator, a woman, and an advocate, these issues are close to my heart. They form part and parcel of my legislative agenda in the Philippine Senate. Like many of you here, I strongly believe that migration and gender equality are inextricably linked. Women comprise a large part of international migrants. Women migrant workers are main movers of the global economy and contribute largely to international, regional, and national productivity. However, they are also victims of different forms of abuse, discrimination, and inequality. These include vulnerabilities to exploitation, sexual, physical, and psychological abuse, lack of access to reproductive health care services, and human and drug trafficking. The Philippines is one of 3 countries in Asia where women comprise the majority of migrant workers. Based on the government's 2015 data, there were about 1.25 million female overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs. Many of them are in their reproductive ages of 25 to 29 years. In contrast, male OFWs numbered around 1.19 million in the same year. The growing feminization of labor migration in the Philippines is mostly due to economic factors. The stories of our women migrant workers are truly heartbreaking. Many of our women OFWs went abroad with only one goal: to provide a better life for their families. Sadly, many became susceptible to abuses from predatory recruiters, abusive employers, criminal syndicates, and even some embassy officials who take advantage of their vulnerabilities. With your indulgence, dear friends, let me narrate to all of you the tragic story of my kababayan, Mary Jane Veloso. At the moment, Mary Jane is languishing on death row in Indonesia for allegedly smuggling illegal drugs into the country. She was born to an impoverished family in the northern city of Cabanatuan, where she was married at 17, but later separated from her husband. She went to Indonesia as a migrant worker. Just like many Filipinos, she hoped that working abroad would improve the life of her family here in the Philippines. Unfortunately, she was set up by an international drug syndicate to carry drugs into Indonesia. Mary Jane was twice a victim, first by illegal recruiters and second by drug traffickers. Her case has become the focus of attention and sympathy in both the Philippines and in Indonesia, where many families have loved ones working abroad, often working in poor working conditions. Her story is a prime example of the vulnerabilities being faced by our migrant women workers. In Mary Jane's case, international drug trafficking syndicates play on the vulnerability of women migrant workers. Promising them jobs abroad, many poor women are tricked into becoming drug mules. Mary Jane's story is certainly a tragedy. However, there is something more tragic when our women migrant workers are exploited by their own countrymen in some foreign land. This is the story of the victims of the so-called Sex for Fly scheme, in which distressed women OFWs are forced to have sex with some Philippine government officials in exchange for a ticket back to the Philippines. It was reported that Philippine embassy and labor officials in the Middle East, some of them, demand sexual favors from OFWs who are seeking repatriation. One of the victims, Lita, not her real name, said a labor attaché asked her sexually loaded questions when she sought help from embassy officials after her employer molested her. Another victim, Ella, also not her real name, said an embassy official pulled her into a comfort room and molested her. These stories are unfortunately not isolated cases. There are more Mary Janes, Litas, and Ellas out there. Their stories wait to be told. They all demand justice. This is why I was happy when last year, 193 countries gathered together and put forward a development agenda called the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. These goals include a standalone goal for gender equality, Goal 5, as well as gender equality and women empowerment target that will be reflected across all goals. Certainly, SDG 5 is loaded with many possibilities and is a step in the right direction. Without doubt, this will strengthen the use of the gender lens in our labor migration interventions. By applying the SDG's principle of universality to migration, this will strengthen migration as a global issue that requires the commitment of all stakeholders. However, as we fulfill our international obligations under the SDGs, please allow me, dear friends, to make the following recommendations, which I hope will find ample support in this gathering. One important issue that we must not overlook is the involvement of affected parties in the drafting of policies. I reiterate my support that migrant workers and the different social movements and civil society groups must be involved or continue to be involved in policy formulation, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation. We must also get accurate data to analyze the challenges being faced by our migrant workers today to better respond to their needs. We must conduct and support quantitative and qualitative research, data collection, and analysis to identify the problems and needs faced especially by women migrant workers in every phase of the migration process to promote their rights and to formulate or amend relevant policies. And this is where CIFALPH Philippines, based at the University of the Philippines, will now play a leadership role here in our country. There is also a need for our respective governments to have an accurate information system that will provide the list of authentic and reliable recruitment agencies. Here in our country alone, while the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration has been regularly announcing the list of fraudulent agencies, many of our citizens still fall prey to abusive and bogus recruitment agencies. On our side of the fence, we must make stringent efforts to finally weed out these agencies that take advantage of our migrant workers. Likewise, we should strengthen the legal protection of our migrant workers. This must be duly expressed in our respective foreign policies. There should be a reliable system to verify if the contracts of our migrant workers are legally valid. Our government should ensure that occupations dominated by women migrant workers, such as domestic work, are protected by labor laws in their country of destination. In the Philippines, there is already a strong recommendation that we should enhance the existing pre-departure orientation seminars to equip our migrant workers better. We should also create a gender-specific roster of pre-departure education programs specifically targeting female migrant workers. As a health advocate, dear friends, we should also address the public health aspect of migration. One problem is the prevalence of communicable diseases. For example, if the immunization coverage is low in the country of origin or return, the original population risk will be carried to the destination country until coverage of migrants reaches the same level as that for the host population. Similarly, if the prevalence of a given communicable disease or any neglected disease is higher in the country of origin or return, there is an increased likelihood among migrants of borders there is an increased likelihood among migrants of being affected by the condition and or transporting it across borders, like in the case of the Zika virus. This poses a serious challenge as we continue to define public health preventive and treatment measures for migrant workers, especially undocumented or irregular migrants and or those forced to internal or international migration, since there are as yet no mechanisms to detect health conditions prior to migration. Lastly, dear friends, we must protect our migrants from racism, xenophobia, and other forms of anti-migrant sentiment. This is where I would like to directly address our local government officials who are represented here today very strongly and who hail from different parts of the world as the frontline leaders and service providers to our migrant workers. I add my voice together with the United Nations in enjoining our heroic local government leaders to identify key elements in designing context-based strategies to address the impact of migration. The role of local government units on this matter cannot be dismissed, as illustrated earlier by Dr. Colleen. Local governments are in a unique position to understand the trends affecting their people and to preempt potential negative dynamics to social integration in their communities. Local government leaders are crucial partners in designing measures and other programs to address racism and overcome local barriers to integration and peaceful cohabitation. As policymakers in our respective territories, we should always put above the interests of our vulnerable sectors in crafting policies for migration. We should never forget to protect and advance the rights as well of migrants and their families working in various parts of the world. As public servants, we should tap the collective action of different sectors and stakeholders so we can work together to help migrants become and remain drivers of development. let us not forget our chief mandate as government policy formulators, which is to safeguard the human rights of our people at all times, regardless of gender, age, religion, creed, race, or political belief. Marami pong salamat sa inyong lahat. Thank you very much. Mabuhay.
Thanks very much, Honorable Senator Riza Ontiveros. And now we move on to the closing remarks. I'd like to call on Irina Boyakova Soyorano, UN Resident Coordinator from Serbia. Let's give her a very warm round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Riza Ontiveros, Dr. Alfredo Pascual, President of the University of the Philippines, mayors and guests. I am not Olaf, I am Irina Boyachkova Soyorano. Olaf is unfortunately stuck in traffic, so he could not make it for the speech. So I will be reading his speech. Good evening. It is my pleasure and privilege to speak to you tonight at the launch of the Centre International de Formation des Autorités de Leaders, or CIFAL Philippines. Congratulations to the University of the Philippines and UNITAR for their leadership and foresight in establishing CIFAL here in the Philippines, and to the Commission of Filipinos Overseas, the United Nations Development Programme, the International Organization for Migration, UN Women, and the International Labour Organization for their support to this important initiative. I am privileged to be here for the part of CIFAL Philippines Board of Representatives. The Philippines is a major source country of migrants, with more than 10 million of its citizens working and living in countries across the world. The Filipino diaspora is a source of rich knowledge and experiences on innovations, good practices, and models in managing migration for development, both at the national and local level. Every year, the Philippines receives delegations from various parts of the world, representing governments, civil society groups, and international organizations to learn from the Philippines' experience on migration and development. In mid-October, for example, the Philippines will, with support from UNDP, will host a delegation from Jamaica that will look at how the Philippines develops and operationalizes a whole-of-government approach to migration and development. An important focus will be on identifying strategies in enhancing and capacity of migrants as partners, and how they can actively support the development of the local economy in their home country. UNDP is happy to contribute in this regard, including through the example, the Joint Migration and Development Initiative, the JMDI. This program focuses on the local dimensions of migrants' contributions to development and aims to maximize the potential of migration for local development through the delivery of targeted support to local authorities and non-state actors. UNDP is implementing the JMDI program in 8 countries, including the Philippines, in partnership with the International Organization for Migration, the International Labour Organization, UN Women, UN High Commissioner for Refugees, UN Population Fund, and UNITAR, with funding from the European Union and the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. Migration has become an important and rapidly growing phenomenon, and for the first time it has been included in the global 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, with its 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The 2030 Agenda is hugely ambitious, but it is necessary if we want to put people and our planet on a sustainable path by 2030. The SDGs serve as a guide to help us achieve the world we want by 2030, to advance human development, to safeguard our planet, to bring prosperity for all, to turn conflict into peace, to establish a partnership for their achievement and that the world has never seen before. The SDGs fully recognize migration as a core development consideration that can make a positive contribution when migrants develop skills and support the growth of economy. With its vast experience, array of knowledge, products, and pool of experts, the launch of CIFAL in the Philippines, with its coverage of the Asia-Pacific region, will significantly contribute to further build the capacity and knowledge on key development issues such as migration and development, gender and development, and the Sustainable Development Goals. The presence of CIFAL Philippines is very timely, as here is as much to do in terms of capacity building, training, research in relation to the SDGs, given the expanse of the 17 goals, the 169 targets. In development since last year, we now also have indicators, 230 of them. That's a lot to achieve. Not the least, thanks to the leadership and experience by the Philippines and the Philippine Statistical Authority over the UN, interagency and expert group working on the development of these indicators. We need data that will support, validate, and prove the indicators. We need studies that will inform, guide, and justify future legislation, policies, and actions to help achieve the SDGs. We need research that will help monitor our progress, identify our bottlenecks, correct our failures, speed up the processes, and strengthen our innovations and good practices. It is very appropriate that this launch takes place at the 3rd Global Mayoral Forum, as an important area for CIFAL Philippines is in the localization of the SDGs, which requires the active support of mayors, governors, prefects, and other local authorities, particularly in remote and less developed areas. Capacitating and mentoring local authorities and stakeholders are essential to deepen the understanding and appreciation of, as well as contribute to the achievement of the SDGs. achieving the SDGs, and building sharp and prosperous societies equally at the international and national and local level, and has enormous investment opportunities that will benefit all people and our planet. This is also a people-driven agenda built on the foundations of transparency, participation, and inclusion. By CIFAL Philippines, which will cover the Asia-Pacific, will serve as platform for regional exchange and knowledge sharing, regardless of sex and gender, migration status, and environmental condition. We have, or we are in, we only have one planet to protect and save. There are many lessons to learn and to share. For example, in El Salvador, school dropout rates were lowered through an increase in enrollment of children from remittance-receiving households. This can perhaps look as well at situations in countries like Laos. The strategies such as by South Korea in optimizing their industries with overseas labor forces can perhaps be adopted by Indonesia and the Philippines as well. With nearly 50% of Tajikistan's gross domestic product dependent on migrant remittances, they may learn how Bangladesh, Ghana, and Nepal have reduced poverty with their help of remittances. And the list goes on. CIFAL will certainly make an important contribution to this for the Asia-Pacific region. Congratulations again to the University of the Philippines, UNITAR, and all the partners of CIFAL. We look forward to deepening our engagement with you. We wish you a great success. Thank you so much.
Indeed, the University of the Philippines is very happy to be part of the UN. And on that note, we formally bring to a close tonight's program. Thanks very much for attending the University of the Philippines President's Toast, CIFAL Philippines Grand Launch. As we say in our language, in our national language, maraming salamat, thanks very much, and please enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.